Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviram Karvavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahaihi. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्. Okay, so what which one was it? Yes, we were on verse 13. And I had explained everything, but we had not read Swamiji's commentary. That's where we were, right? So basically, this is a verse where he's saying that how a person who is like enlightened person, how he lives in this body, which is like a 9-gated city, very happily, because he has renounced agency, meaning doership, and neither he's acting nor causing others to act. And interestingly enough, the same type of idea is going in Kathopanishad, but there is a chariot, here is the city, but it's exactly the same similar thing, slightly different point they are covering, but the idea is the same. So let's see with who all have. Shireen, you want to? No, Shireen has the other book. Meena ji, you want to read?
Yes. Mentally renouncing all actions and fully self-controlled, the embodied one rests simply happily in the 9-gate city, neither acting nor causing others, body and senses, to act. We have already found that the Vedic culture, by the time of the Mahabharata, had come to suffer a terrible fall. Terms and ideas came to gather in its fold new significances which were never intended by the Rishis. Thus, even for people like Arjuna, sannyasa came to mean running away from its challenges. Krishna here, with the daring which is usual with all revivalists, is making a reinterpretation of the Vedic declarations for the benefit of his generation. So, sannyasa is not a mere physical escapism, but a mental withdrawal from things that are unintelligent and thoughtless. It is a mental attitude and not an external symbol. Therefore, he who is a self-controlled individual and who has brought all his sense appetites under perfect control and renounced all his egocentric and desire-prompted actions comes to experience and live in a nameless joy, contentment, and peace which well up from the depths within him. He thus remains contented and happy in the city of 9 gates.
Okay, so very interesting point that we think that abhi Kalyug hai, itna kharab hai, ye wo hai. Here Swamiji is saying that even Mahabharata's time, that was a different yuga. The same problem was happening, that all these terms and ideas that rishis never intended had some meaning that they started using, a different kind of meaning. And I think that, to me, that Varna Vyavastha, the caste system, is a greatest example of it. It was never meant to be that way, but people just made up some stories about and started living it that way. So, and then we already know about sannyas, that we, even when before I came to Chinmaya Mission, anybody who says sannyasi, I thought somebody who just left everything and went to the jungles. But here Krishna Bhagavan is giving a totally new definition. So we have to, that's why I think there's so much significance of Bhagavad Gita, that if we thoroughly study and understand and contemplate and live it, then it is gives you the correct meaning what they really intended it to be. You know. And then nine-gated city we have I kind of already explained, but in the next paragraph he's going to tell what it means.
So Umaji, now, Krishnaji's interpretation for that time. So is it true that with what we see with our teenagers, with our youngs, that the interpretation again could be changed and can be changed by someone? Is that
See,
true?
when it comes to the Bhagavad Gita is basically, the very basic principles are there. That's why it is good, no matter what time, what place, nothing is a bar. No religion is a bar, no place is a bar, no time is a bar. So every time you read, it will be good. But there are certain social issues and certain behaviors and all that are, going with the time, that they are not talking about it. They are not talking about issues like child labor or something like that may be happening like at that time. But you can take those principles and then work on them. So what and when you talk about teenagers, the interesting thing about
thought or the examples that they can relate to now
oh
they
yeah,
may not be able to relate to these. So getting the same idea through a different way.
yes.
That's what I'm
So
saying.
like because I also work with teenagers, right? And over there with the so the way Darshana Ben also kind of trained us in Houston, teachers to talk with teenagers. I'll always try to bring science, their current topics, what they are facing in the school and college and school basically. They are in like 10th, 11th grade. Sometimes I even talk to college people and all that. Because unless they feel like it is going to solve my problem, they don't even want to listen to it. So that is up to us. But these principles, the examples, some of the examples that they have given, that is still they can relate to this nine-gated city, right? But others you can bring it in yourself, like the chariot example. You can translate into a car very easily. The reins are the steering wheel, and the horses, वहाँ horses है, यहाँ wheels बोल दो उसको. So we can definitely do that, and the principle is not going to change. And we can even start, hey, Krishna Bhagwan said that, but this is what applies in today. Because those days the vehicle was chariot, so he picked up chariot. Nowadays it's car, so we pick up the car. Perfectly fine. Because I think that main thing is that the foundation is exactly the same. The principles are not going to change. Of all the main ideas from the Upanishad, that's why they're so powerful. And now the Western people are started recognizing it. That hey, there is so much value to it. What we are trying so hard to discover, these guys already did it. So now they're coming back to it. But with teenagers, you have to use a different language for sure. You can definitely tell them this, but then you add with the example. Then it has the best value. That then they will say, okay, now I see that this is my issue, this is my example, and this is how it relates to so what Krishna Bhagwan is saying, and then they start having the respect for it. And then it depends, like I tell you, like which teenager you are talking to, that makes a huge difference. How much open they are, because if they are totally shut, then don't even talk about God and things like that, because they'll tune you out. A lot of people have allergy with the word God. Tell something like higher intelligence, cosmic intelligence, they'll immediately connect to that, because everybody knows that, and then the way I do my class, that's the way I like to do is, I'll ask them questions. I'll ask like, do you think that there is something, like cosmic intelligence there? And if they say yes, that means they believe. Some say no, then how do you think everything is happening? Where did the gravitational force come from? Humans didn't make it. See, so you kind of say like this, yeah, and then now let them agree with their own ideas. That's that. The moment you start lecturing them and just telling them, they will tune you out in 2 minutes. So you got to catch their attention that way. That's how I would deal with the teenagers.
This is a famous metaphor used in the Upanishads to indicate the physical body of the seeker. The body is considered a fortress city having 9 main gates, which are the 9 apertures in the physical structure, 7 of them on the face, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, and 1 mouth, and the 2 apertures on the trunk, the genital organ, and the excretory organ. Without these 9 holes, or at least a majority of them, life within the body is impossible. Just as the king remaining in the fortress rules over his kingdom through his ministers, giving them encouragement, strength, and sanction by his mere presence, so too the Atman, within the physical structure, though itself doing nothing, by its mere presence, vitalizes the various instruments of cognition and action within and without, and governs the life in them all.
So we have discussed in much detail last class about it, that how the Atman is not the doer. Neither it's doing anything, not it's causing anybody to do anything. Everything is happening in nature, but without the presence of that consciousness, nothing is possible. And the best example that we can take that we will relate to is immediately is when a person is alive, that consciousness connection is there. The moment the life is gone from that person, no matter how some of the equipments may be perfect in his body, but they stop functioning. So that is in front of us that we can see that. But here is explaining in terms of the whole basic principle of consciousness, that it actually doesn't do anything, but in the presence is absolutely vital, and in its presence everything happens. The same way the moment the king is there, sab kuch chalta hai, king, like procession of the king, you can see also. He's sitting there. But the whole city gets vitalized, people are going, looking, doing this, doing that, and his court also is the same way. All the ministers are active because he's sitting there on the throne.
Would you give electricity also an example, or is this because
Perfect.
it's done?
No,
Right.
Electricity is a very, very good example, because it's like, I was going to talk about that in the Kathopanishad, or even in this one, that hey, the electricity is there, computer ko dekh lo. Computer is such a sophisticated thing, and it is capable, but it is the programming that does everything, right? Electricity is not doing anything. The programming of the computer does everything. So programming is more like our mind and intellect, capable of doing. But the electricity, the moment it is passed through, everything starts functioning. Like the Swami was saying that, electricity is off, and you put it on, the computer becomes on. Moment you turn the electricity off, computer is off. Same, very good example, electricity.
Recently, it's Taliban, the president defected and, the whole country fell down.
Oh, you mean, yeah, I don't keep up with the news, but I know what you're saying. So the king goes, and then everything falls apart. True. Yeah.
This famous metaphor is used here by Sri Krishna, and he says that a self-controlled man lives within the physical body, a nameless joy of pure divine life, ever watching over the activities of the matter envelopments around him. Such an individual, ever identifying with the self, observes on, unaffected, unattached, and without agitations, all the thrilled activities in the layers of matter, but neither does he act, nor does he cause others to act.
So now he's talking about, the person who is completely established in that truth. For us, it's like little bit goes and comes and goes, comes and goes. We have still some doubts here and there. This person, if he's completely established, then how he will live as a self-controlled man, and and he'll have pure nameless joy that we discussed in detail, that how the peace comes from within for this person. Peace is not something manufactured outside between the countries or anything. So it does not matter what the outside circumstances are. And then here is, Minaji, your famous thing about the witness. He observes on, unaffected, unattached, and without agitation. So this is what it is. So I think it's, on one hand, the concept, once we understand it, it's simple concept, but it is very, very hard to live. But the more we contemplate and think, the more we have a better chance of actually doing that. You know. Anybody has any question, comment, or
The
want to
only
add
thing is
anything?
the living part, because you understand intellectually everything. And you understand this also. But when you try to separate yourself and become a witness, that just becomes a little hard. I mean, for a second, for two.
Yes,
But, to be,
true. So I think that the way, one of the thing that we could do is, suppose some incident happened in our life, and we kind of failed at this knowledge, that we were supposed to be witness, and we got too emotional, so then we have to analyze it, introspection jisko bolte hain, and then we say, okay, next time this is going to happen, I'm going to be prepared. That helps a lot. So next time a situation comes and you say, look, last time I messed up, this time I'm going to remember my Geeta. And then so that's why I think that a lot of times, like Chinmayananji and all, they are all the saints and sages always say that you must have a time for reflection. Even they say before you sleep, you can think, hey, how did my day go? How much did I actually do this, and how much I didn't do? Nobody's going to do it perfectly right away. Impossible. And people who are saying they're lying, So we all fail, but then our threshold becomes also better and better, right? Pehle, we used to lose our temper very quickly. Now, we don't, or even we get angry about something. Before that, we would be holding on for days. Some people, like one Swami said, some people hold on for life. They can't give up. In fact, I think today only I was listening to some question answer session from Shri Ravi Shankar, and he gave a very great definition of trauma. He's saying when somebody says, I have a trauma, all that means is the person doesn't know how to let go. That's why you have a trauma. You say, I'm traumatized about something. Something happened in somebody's life, that means they have not learned the technique of letting go. It was such a simple definition, So when we say that, hey, I'm traumatized, you want sympathy, you want this, you that. But if you self-reflect and you say, all I'm doing is just holding on to it. No matter what happened, it's not, we can't do anything about it. It's gone. Well, so those are the kind of things that we have to, and in the light of this knowledge, we have to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I say one sentence?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I quite often tell myself, I'm watching myself.
Yes, and that is exactly the technique, And if you think, the word witness is a very powerful one, because suppose if witness means you are not part of it. Otherwise, you cannot be a witness, right? Even in the legal term, the witness has to be somebody who is not part of the accident or something. So witness is something when you're, yourself not involved in it. So that's, if we can do that, Shireen, that's a very powerful technique.
I have been doing it for years now.
Yeah, that's great. That's
Watching myself. Yes. That I'm watching myself,
Yes, very good. Yes. Anybody else? Okay, so we can go to the next verse. Verse 14. And now the same idea is going to be, further explained. So, like I said, that in Bhagavad Gita, the same ideas are taken and opened up more and more in different angles. Okay. Verse 14. Na kartutvam na karmani lokasya srujati prabhuhu na karma phala sanyogam swabhavastu pravartate. No is not kartutvam, agency. No is not karmani, action. Yeah, agency bola, but we know it's doership. That's what it means. Kartapan, like they say in Hindi. Lokasya is for this world. Srujati is creates. Prabhu, the Lord. So there are two words. Here is Prabhu, and then one is going to come Vibhu in the next one. And Prabhu is like, lordship over something. And Vibhu is all pervading is called, but it's basically the same idea that, like a boss, you can say. No is not karma phal sanyogam, union with the fruit of actions. So this word is coming because when we do any karma, तो बोलते हैं ना karma phal data. There is somebody who gives us the fruit result of that, or fruit of action we call it in Bhagavad Gita. But basically जो भी हम काम करते हैं उसका reaction होता है, fruit मिलता है हमको. Swabhava is nature, tu is but, pravartate leads to action. So before I go into it, I wanted to tell you that sometimes, like some concepts are given, and then as you go deeper into Vedanta, they will say, no, that was not true, this is true. They will change the whole thing. But it depends on the context. So remember that. It's not like the previous one was all wrong, but like when we say Bhagavan is a karma phala data, at one stage that's right, but when you're talking of the consciousness at a very pure level, it's not neither doing anything, nor it's causing anything, nor is giving fruit of action, because all that is a part of nature. That's how we have to look at it. So once we understand that, then it becomes simple. And just like the electricity and the computer, electricity is not making the computer work, but in the presence of electricity it works. That's how the correct way we can understand. Just keep those kind of concepts in mind, then you will understand this better. So here is what that Prabhu is talking about. So Prabhu is like a boss and all, but also it's all Atma. And the other thing we can look at over here, Prabhu is the one who is a realized master, who is identified with that. So he also becomes a Prabhu only in that respect. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So when we are talking about it, you can even think of the realized master, how he is in this world also. And the word kartutvam is means he does not create any sense of doership, or nor any action, and not even tell anybody to do anything, or does not create any situation also. All of that comes under the nature. So because we say, oh, Bhagwan will help me and all that, but in this sense, at the highest level, the nature is going to help you. Not the Bhagwan. So that's how it is. You have to look at it at the highest level. So, and the other question is that when we are talking about like that, then all of a sudden some idea might come into our head that as though consciousness is somewhere different and all that. And then the saints and sages will say, no, that consciousness is you only. Because at the core of your being, it is there. So it's you only. You're not talking about somebody else outside. That's another thing we have to remember. And then the Dilliwale Swami, he reminded us that he gave that example of that villager coming to a big house and then talking, from that, the speaker at the door. And he started thinking the wall is talking, No, it was not the wall, it was the person sitting inside. Okay. So that's what he was reminding, that when, suppose, abhi ulta socho, the person who is sitting inside, who is a malik of the house, if for some reason he gets deluded and he starts thinking that I am this wall, or I am this speaker, or I am this, something like that, so there'll be so much confusion in him. Same way we, that pure Atma, all of a sudden we start thinking I'm the body, or I'm the mind, so that kind of, and then somebody's saints and sages are continuously reminding you, hey, you're not that, neither you're your mind, nor you're your intellect, nor you're your body, you are that pure Atma. So that's where we have to put our mind back into. So now coming back to this karma phala sanyogam, so he's saying that somebody might say, I thought Ishwar was the result of giving the result of action. But remember, Ishwar Tattva is different. When you come very technical, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, those are manifestation of that consciousness. So, at that level, it's different. But pure consciousness is even above them, And I think last time Joe brought that point about the different koshas. He said, I thought Anandmay kosha was that final, but its consciousness is beyond that. Anandmay is also a kosha, because Anandmay actually deep sleep may they call it. They call it causal body or Anandmay kosha. You know? So then somebody might ask, okay, then how does the action happen? We have gone through it, but it's repeating in this verse. It says the last part of it, Svabhavastu vartante, pravartate, sorry. So he's saying that this is a very powerful statement. Okay, everything functions according to its own svabhava, it's saying. And that's where we can bring this computer and the electricity example again to understand that how its own nature, because computer is programmed in such a way to act. So that's become its svabhava. And we already did the example that without electricity, computer is dead, but electric power is that makes it alive. So the same way, our body, mind, and intellect has its own nature, but whatever the nature is, that becomes alive with the consciousness, and then it will behave accordingly. So one of the things is that what Bhagavad Gita is going to teach us, that how not to get stuck at our own svabhava, or make use of our svabhava in such a way that we rise up in spirituality. You can look at it that way too. But if there is certain negativities in my own rajas, tamas, in sattva, I can tune it a little bit to go the higher. And as we go further, we will learn about that more and more. Okay. So here in this example of computer and the electricity, suppose if the electricity start getting diluted and start thinking that I am the computer, that's when the problem will start. And the saint will say, no, you have nothing to do with the computer. You are separate. You just have to be there and the computer will function on its own. That's your power, that without you, computer is nothing. So that's how we have to look at this example for us. So just like, in the electricity example, it's not doing anything. The same way we have to look at this same verse, that the Atma doesn't do anything or cause anything to do anything. So then somebody might say that how the whole universe is working, and then we even suppose teenagers are there. Huh? So how will we explain to them? Say, okay, look, there are laws. We are on the earth and we are alive and or we can see, but there is a rest of the solar system is there. Like rest, we don't even know where other life is. Who is running all that? So the scientists are discovering these laws continuously, aren't they? I mean, first the gravitational law was discovered, and then the relativity theory came. I'm talking about from the Western perspective now. And then motion laws are there, and then I don't know how many of you have seen that movie called Theory of Everything. Have you seen that movie? It's about this scientist, who came up with this theory of everything, and people who are into this universal cosmos kind of theory, they are very passionate about that. Sometimes you can go and see that movie. It's pretty interesting. And the quantum mechanics, we know that they have come up with it. So these are the laws according to which the cosmos functions. And so our mind and intellect also have certain laws how they function. Okay? So this is all becomes part of the nature. And so now coming back to Vedanta, what Vedanta is telling us, that don't get caught up in this kind of bondage, and learn to separate. That's what it's telling us to do. Because the problem with this getting caught up into the bondage is, then there's a chakkar continues, like a cycle, birth, death. It's telling you to get out of it. That's why the whole thing is there, to become a witness and things like that. So one more way of looking at it, that the nature works literally on an autopilot. Like Swamiji used to say, hey, somebody might say, I don't believe in gravitational force. Suppose, okay? So he's saying, hey, all you have to do is just go to the window and slightly put your 1 foot out and you will know about gravity. You're just joking that, whether you believe it or not is there, So that's what it is, that it works. It'll work here, it'll work 5,000 years ago, million years ago, all the time, so that's how it is. So coming back to this particular verse, suppose if how to separate myself. If I'm saying, oh, I have decided to do this way, then my ahankar is talking, because nature has its own way. It's going to do it. You can have a good guess that maybe this is what will happen. That's all it is for us. Really what's going to happen, we don't know. And then because anything that is happening, it is happening without Atma interfering in it. Just nature is doing it. And then what we have to remember is that I am that Atma which is untouched by nature. Because right now we feel almost like a slave, right? That, oh my God. But if we learn to become a witness, that's the only time we will not feel like a slave. Okay, but it's happening, it's happening. I don't care, I'm doing my best, and that's what it is. Like Swamiji said, do your best and leave the rest. Don't have a insistence on one particular kind of result and all that. So he's saying that once we understand this, that person is called an enlightened person. So when you said that, hey, I want enlightenment or I want realization, somebody who understands this and totally gets established in this, that person is realized. That's basically this next verse. It's just expanding on the same idea of what was before. Anybody has any question, comment, want to add anything before we read? Everybody got very serious. Anilji, you want to read?
Okay. Neither agency nor actions does the Lord create for the world, nor union with the fruits of actions, but it is nature that acts. This stanza is generally considered by the Geeta commentators as material provided by Sri Vyasa in defining the principles of God, which is evidently a paraphrase of the same idea contained in the Brahman portion of the Vedas. We may even add that in the paraphrase of the philosophical concept has evolved to a greater perfection and rings a clearer scientific note.
So he's just telling you that, in the first part of the Veda, remember, that's where when people like, okay, you humans may have a lot of desires, so you can fulfill it by doing the right way. Vedas are not against fulfilling your desires. So in the beginning, if you have whatever many desires, you can fulfill that. And then also in that portion, it's like you do action, you get a result. And then the Bhagwan deta hai result. हम लोग ऐसे ही तो बोलते हैं. So he's just saying that यहाँ पर थोड़ा उस same idea को आगे लेके जाया गया है कि भाई at the purest level, the consciousness is really not giving you the result. It's totality of nature is giving you the result. That's what it is. So it's not opposed to that idea, but it's just refined more. Now we are ready to go take another leap, That's what it is.
And Umaji, is it correct that the laws of nature are unchangeable?
Yes, absolutely. That's why I told you that it's like I say I don't believe in gravitational force. Gravitational force is the same, right? And it's unchangeable.
And then many of the laws we haven't discovered yet.
Yes, exactly. And even there's all these things, the electronic age, it's not like suddenly some new things have arrived in the universe, correct? They have always been there. And the interesting thing is, I find that totally mind-boggling that whatever they were talking about now, those concepts were there before also 5,000 years ago. Guided missile. नहीं वो ऐसे नहीं बोलते थे वो तीर छोड़ा that it hit that guy that he wanted to miles away. Like guided missile ही तो हो गया. We just called it तीर वीर जो भी बोलना था. And even the other kind of वो ऐसा विस्फोट हो, like Brahmastra they call it. Brahmastra is like if every time they discouraged them to use the Brahmastra. I was just watch because my husband was watching the Mahabharata again, so I was watching with him. And at one point, अश्वत्थामा ने ब्रह्मास्त्र चलाया और फिर अर्जुन ने भी, तो फिर कृष्ण भगवान आ गए वहां पर. बोला immediately both of you, are you guys stupid or what? You want to annihilate this whole earth? Why are you using such weapons for small things? And so then they kind of reversed it. One of them did, one of them couldn't, whatever the story was. So the same thing, like no atom bomb. एक बार हमने atom bomb को जब हम लोग ने उसका विस्फोट कर दिया, अभी सारी कंट्रीज डरती है, बोलते वो मरेंगे, हम सभी मरेंगे. So why are you becoming suicidal? So it is proven that these laws don't change, and like exactly like you said, new ones are going to be discovered, but we should have a little bit less ego about ourselves that only this time in the whole history that we know this. No, it's a cyclic thing. It has come and gone, Exactly. I 100% believe in that.
In the ritualistic portion of the Vedas, God is the supreme intelligence, ever dynamic and potent, who observes and watches over all our action, and who with perfect justice dispenses to each his reward for all his actions. Here, however, the Lord, the Creator, is described not so much as what he is, but as what his relationship with the universe is.
So he's just, the problem over here is that, like I was talking about it, no example is going to be perfect, right? And these concepts are so subtle that to understand them, we have to examine it from different actions. So what Swamiji is bringing your attention to, hey, what is the relationship of that Lord or Creator or consciousness at the purest level to the world? And he, at one point later on in the other chapters, he's going to call it relationless relationship. And here in this, there is one more term he's going to use is contactless contact. And trying to give the two almost like, what should I say, contradictory thing. How can you have a contactless contact? But that makes you think. And then it's just like this rope and the snake. What is the relationship between rope and snake? The snake is just a, क्या बोलना चाहिए, illusion bolo, delusion bolo, kuch bhi bolo, but it is coming because of the rope. If rope was near, then we won't even see the snake. Everybody knows that example. That's why I'm straight jumping into the example. So what is it's almost like contactless contact. They are not touching each other, but I'm seeing it. In the real rope, there is no snake. So that's how you have to just contemplate. And the relationship is like, how do I say, sun and that is a very good one. In the presence of sun, everything happening, but sun is billions of miles away from us. It's not touching us that way. But light is coming here and here. So even though light touches us, it's still contactless. I don't know how to explain it, but sunlight is touching us, but it's still not touching us. It's free. It is a very interesting concept, but I think to me that one is like a very good example of this one. But without the sun, we cannot function. The same way without consciousness, nothing can happen. But consciousness is not actually part of this. It is independent. That's another way of looking at it. It has an independent existence. Or let's look at the ocean and the waves. Waves need the ocean, but the ocean doesn't need the waves, because underneath, if you go 50 foot down, there's no waves. And the ocean is very happy there. Doesn't need it. So many different ways you can see this.
This is no jarring note in thus bringing suddenly an alien object matter into our discussion of the nature of a self-controlled man of perfection and his experiences. For these two stanzas, though it may be interpreted as describing the God principle because of the terms used Vibhu and Prabhu, in the context of the discussion here, it may be considered as nothing but a description of the relationship between the self and the not self, the Atma and the matter envelopments.
So that same thing, he's just telling you that they did use the word, but actually they are talking more about the relationship between them, us, or nature, and the higher self.
So, can you also say that they have to be together? One cannot exist without the other.
Okay, so this is what it
They
is.
do not affect each other.
In Vedanta, they always say that consciousness can exist without the matter, but matter cannot exist
Yes.
without consciousness. Because consciousness is, and the other way of looking at it is, they think what you are thinking, and that's also okay to say. It's something like, if there is a fire, there will be heat and light. Correct? And fire is inherent in everything. We can burn anything, basically. Fire element will come out. When fire element comes out, the heat and light is part of it. So you cannot separate it. So it is in the potentiality is there in it. That's how you can look at it. So when we say consciousness, matter is nothing but a power of consciousness, or Maya is nothing but a power of consciousness. That's how you can look at it. So actually they are really one. That's why in like Radha Krishna, they say it, no? It's Joe's favorite show. Radha Krishna is actually one only. But then it manifests as two. So same way consciousness is one, then it manifests as, as a nature.
The Supreme Self neither creates any sense of agency, nor does it sanction any action. The Supreme has no such function as marrying even action to its correct fruits. In this very assertion, we can find how for the ordinary commentators who jump to the conclusion that this passage is a description of the Vedic God principle, Karma Phal Data, are in the wrong. Any close student of the Gita can clearly see that there is an attempt on the part of Krishna to indicate to Arjuna the function and nature of the self and its relationship with the three bodies, the physical, the mental, and the causal.
So I think he is saying that because the word karma phala sanyogam is given. So some people just jump to conclusion that Bhagwan is a karma phala data and this and that, So he's saying that's not the purpose in this particular verse. He's just telling you that he has in some ways nothing to do with it. And I don't know if you have heard this concept that भगवान doesn't really, उनका ना कोई favorite है ना कोई प्रिय है उस sense में, and then the only way I can probably really relate is when I heard these people who went in the other realm, who had a near-death experience. They are the one who came back, and there's no judgment over there. It's only love, even though they look at the whole life, but they're looking at it not from the judgment point of view at all. So it's like no matter what you have done, you are still loved. I mean, that अपने को सुनने में बहुत अजीब लगता है. Even if somebody has done such horrible things, but all that is happening at the level of nature only. At the pure self, everybody is pure. So that's what it is. It's like H2O. At the purest water is pure, but what you see, dirty water, is only contamination in that water. And you can definitely separate the two. They have the tools. Modern people have the tools to separate, and they can take out pure water from any kind of kichad. They can take it out. So that's how it is.
If the reality, the self, has nothing to do with the above mentioned agency or their fruits, our life, which is nothing without them, must have no relationship at all with the self. And yet, where the self is not, their existence and activities are not possible. Therefore, there must be some relationship between the self and the not self. And here, this is strange contactless contact is being explained.
So now we have hashed it out enough now. Now we know that what is the contact-like conscious, or less relationship. It's the same.
It is very well known that my nose is a permanent fixture on my face. It is neither a voluntary nor an involuntary movement. And yet, the other day when I was looking into a basin of water, I saw my nose and ears moving rhythmically sideways as though upon well-oiled hinges. Even when I saw it, I knew that my nose was not moving. But all the same, I saw what I saw. Because my reflection in the water depended entirely upon the reflecting surface, it gathered unto itself its abnormalities from the vagaries of the reflecting medium. The self or the Atma has neither activities nor an agency, and yet, when in this life I function through the equipments that are natural to me, the conditioned self, the ego gathers onto itself these peculiarities of agency, actions, and anxieties for their fruits.
So he just one more time explaining that it just takes up, the quality bolo ya kuch bhi bolo. And I think the best example for this I can think of is that somebody gave, that was a very good example. Suppose there's a fire is there, okay? And then